Hey guys, welcome back to Vinceville Custom. So today we're going to do a work in progress video of bringing some more life to this Spider-Man premium format Sideshow base. Working on a custom for somebody and they wanted me to just kind of bring a little bit more life to the base, and I said it's not a problem. We can add a little bit more detail into it and just kind of go with it. Now when you look at the base though, it's a really great idea and I like what Sideshow did. You can see that it's kind of like the fire within the explosion here, and that fire is also hitting up the top of this part of the base, so it works out pretty good and I like that idea, and it's a really great design. But the problem is the factories, you know, they're painting up like a couple thousand of these and they're not really putting in a lot of effort. You can tell that it's pretty much they painted the whole base yellow, then they added some of the orange, and they did some of the black, and they did some like washing of the black, so it kind of hits in all these little crevices and stuff. But then we have some little bit of which looks like it's actually like they missed it with yellow, but unless they're trying to make it white. I'm not really sure what happened with this one, but it's not really on all the other ones, so I don't know if that's kind of like a defect there or not. But I'm going to kind of have a little bit more fun with the base. I got an idea what I want to do. I can't really explain it until we start slapping paints on it. But as far as the pillar, we're going to add some more like rust to it. We're going to make it look a little older, you know, just kind of bring some life to it. But you can kind of see what the factory did. You see, they kind of like speckled it, so I don't know if they kind of just sat there and speckled it or they hit it with a paintbrush. But I'm going to do more dry brushing on it, at least I know that. And I'll kind of explain the paints and everything that I'll be using. But when you look at the bottom of it too, we kind of get the stopping of the speckling to here, and we also stop it here, but we leave this kind of like clean. So I guess, I don't know if the idea that the explosion heat was hitting here and then hitting up here, or if they just got lazy. I'm not really sure really what happened there. But like I said, it's not a bad paint up from the factory. It's just that when the factory paints up a couple thousand of them, it's just people slapping colors on it. You know, they're told that it's almost like a paint by number, I guess you could think. So you figure yellow, orange, then black with a wash, and that's it. You know, that's kind of what they did for 1,000 of them. Whereas, you know, when you get somebody who can actually sit there and either do it for fun or for somebody else, you could add a lot more life to it and just bring it. So I think I might add a little bit of pearls into the base just to give it a little bit more of a glow and a shine a little bit. And then try to keep this stuff dull up here, but keep this a little bit glowing around here. And then we're gonna bring up this pillar first. So I'll get set up at the desk and we'll just start slapping color on here. Alright, we're going to start painting this up, and this is a Citadel Warp Lock Bronze, and it's a really nice color. It gives kind of like a rusty look. So we're going to do some dry brushing on this. Now real quick, some of you might be asking, why am I laying this base, you know, this piece on right on this messy mat? It really doesn't matter because this is kind of like a messy item anyway, so sometimes mistakes and mess ups can actually make the piece look a little bit better, so I'm not really concerned. Plus this is going to get kind of messy anyway with a lot of this dry brushing. So what I usually do is I take this piece and I just kind of throw it around on something like this. And then we can start bringing this out a little bit more. Just give it a little bit of rust. Now this is kind of just the first step. Now I know a lot of stuff like this, like pillars and stuff, will be a little bit more red anyway, but that's not a problem. We're going to bring that up. So at least this orange stuff I'm kind of bringing down a little bit. And don't mind the dog. Neighbor's dog's going nuts. So this way in here, I can bring this out a little bit more. Keep going. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going like this. We'll do a little bit fast video and then we'll come back when we start adding some more. Okay, so now that we got a kind of a good dry brush of the bronze on there, I have this Citadel chainmail. I don't think it's called chainmail anymore. I think this is an older color. I think it's something new. It's just one of my older paints. So with this I'm going to do some more dry brushing, but I'm going to do it very lightly. I'm not going to go too crazy with this. And I don't mind if it kind of hits the bronze a little bit either. So with this, it's a little bit more light hitting the edges. Just bringing out some metal to it. It's certain areas. So I mean, what the factory did wasn't bad. It's a good base, if anything. The factory did a good base on it. And I guess you could say the factory made it look like a newer, I guess like a newer type of pillar, where we're going more for an older rusty one. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll keep doing some more of the silver. Okay, for the next step is we have some women's makeup, which is a black. And this kind of gives a little bit of a dirt, so you could go into like crevices areas with this. And it's a really dull stuff too. So make sure you get a lot on the brush. And you can hit it in key spots, like around edges. Of course, you have to seal this stuff afterwards. Okay, so like, go for instance, so if you're looking at this, what we can do is we can hit it in between. It starts to darken it up a little bit in certain areas. You don't have to go overboard. So I'm going to do this in a bunch of key areas just to kind of give it some depth in certain spots. Okay, so put a lot of that, you know, which it's basically like charcoal dust. That's pretty much what it is. I know a lot of people like to use pastels and scrape them down, but I use the women's makeup because it's just finer. It works out pretty good. So you have to pretty much seal it, otherwise that stuff will come off. So I have Tester's Dull Coat out of a can. Very potent stuff. I always spray this out in the garage with a mask. Make sure you have a nice ventilated area. Stuff's very potent, but you want to kind of seal this up. Plus it'll dull it down, so anything that's kind of shiny from the metallics I used will be dulled down a little bit, which is what we want. We don't want this to be too shiny. But there's still a little bit more to do to this, but I have to do the base first, and we'll kind of get back to that when I'm going. But I'm going to go in the garage, I'm going to seal this up, and then we're going to start working on the base. Alright, so I got the base pretty much masked off. I don't have to worry about the black down there, so I just have to kind of clean it up. So this is kind of when I looked online. I saw this type of pictures, and I kind of want to go more with that just to bring it out a little bit. So we're going to kind of try to go with some orange first, and then we're going to try to do some heavier blacks underneath and stuff just to kind of make it pop a little bit more. I know I like to say you don't use a lot of black and stuff, but this is kind of an explosion, so we kind of want to follow that as much as we can. So that's pretty much it, and then we'll add a little bit of a pearls in there, and we might do, well, looking at that picture, there's really no white, so I'm going to stay away from any kind of a white dusting up around in here. We'll kind of keep it as yellow as much as possible, but we're just going to try to bring out the sculpt a little bit more and have fun with it. Alright, so we got a little bit more life to the base. We got a little bit more of the fire coming up here. This is looking a little bit more older, so things are going good. Of course, we have to dull it down. It's still a little bit wet. I decided to add a little bit of a light gray to the tips there just to give it that smoke, because it's not like the picture I showed on the computer screen, because that's more of an oil fire. This is more oil fire. This is more of a explosion, so we got to kind of do a gradient type thing. So I think just lighting these up at the tips worked out pretty good. So the next step is I'm going to add a little bit of pearl to it in certain key areas. Just I'm going to try to get the pearl, which is this gold metallic from Createx, in certain key areas just to give a little bit of a glow. Not too much. Probably what I'll have to do is I'll hit it with some transparency red after. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of the dry brushing of the gold on here a little bit, just to give it like a glow is coming up against the base. Now, I might hit a little bit up here and I might hit a little bit over there. I got to just kind of think of how far I want it to go, but it'll bring it all together. Okay, so at this point, guys, I still need to dull it down, but before I dull it down, I'm going to add a little bit of this pearl onto this base. So, get my dry brush going. And what it is just adding like a glow to some edges of the base a little bit. You know, just giving it a little bit of a... Move it around here. A little bit over here, since this is kind of more red, and a little bit. Now, if you want, you could go a little bit higher with it too. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could do a little bit over here. Just trying to focus more at the bottom, not up here, really. Because if it was a, I would say if it was a bigger explosion, then yeah, you would want to cover it all coming up. But we're kind of just focusing more at the bottom. That's really about all. Not going too crazy with it. I think that, let's go a little bit over here. There we go. So it's just adding a little bit of glow. I mean, hopefully you can see it in the camera how it's kind of hitting certain areas. Maybe you could do a little, not much. I think that works pretty good. So I'm going to dull this down, and then I'm going to see if there's anything else I really need to do with it. But I think we're looking pretty good. I'm going to compare this to an earlier picture I took of it, just to see where I'm at, and then go from there. Alright, so I think at this point we're pretty much done. We don't have any more of that weird drops. So now when we, hold on, let's see if we get... So now when we look at the base in different angles, I pulled out all that texture, because there's a lot of texture on this piece, as you can see. So we got all that texture now, and we don't have that weird dots all over the place anymore. And then we got some darkness in areas. We pulled out the rivets. You know, we brought a little bit more detailing underneath. And then we got some of this glow from the pearl for like the fire. So it just adds a little bit more to it now. And put this back in here. So as you turn the base, and hopefully we're at a good spot. So as you turn the base, because I added pearls in there and it dulled it down, you get a little bit of a glow now. So it makes it a little bit fiery and glow a little bit more. When you look at a picture of a 2D item, or you do a painting, you can capture that. But when you're doing a 3D you know, sculpt, it's hard to make this black, and then it'll just kind of blend. So by, you know, doing some transparency reds and transparency yellows, it brought it out a little bit more over those pearls. So it just works now. I think we have a nice blend. We have a nice fiery look going from the bottom coming up to the top, which I kind of hit the gray up there just to kind of make sure, because the idea is this is kind of going up and it's going away. So we're trying to follow that comic book look compared to that one picture I showed. But I think it works out pretty good. Now if I did too much black around here, it would probably work, but the only problem is we have a black base. And I think by doing a black base with a lot of heavy black there, we would lose the fireness. If this wasn't on a black base, on something different, maybe I could bring out the black a little bit more. We don't want to go too crazy. So I think now with Spider-Man up top and this over here, we're going to have a nice blend going. So I think it works out good now. And I really don't see much more to do to it. We just brought out a lot more details. We just made it a little bit more, you know, pop slimmer. Now I'm looking at this angle, so I don't know if we could get it in the camera. So looking at it now, this looks like there's a little fire in this coming up here, which kind of works out pretty cool. So I kind of like that as well. So there you go. That's just making the base pop a little bit more without going too crazy of trying to repaint the whole thing. Just bringing out the color. So I'm going to go over it one more time with some dull coat in the garage if I need to. Make sure that all that stuff that I did with the makeup is sealed. And then we'll be back with the final video of the whole custom. Okay, so with all it was done, after showing the pictures to the client, he wants to go more with hot spots. So we're going to kind of take away the blending out to the white smoke. We're going to go more kind of like, I guess, which I guess would be more of like a oil gas explosion, where it's kind of just like a lot of blacks and reds and not really too much yellows. Yellows will be like in the center areas, but we're going to go more blackish and reds just to kind of give it more of a fiery, I guess that's what you could call it. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to darken this up a lot more and just give it a little bit more of the picture I showed in the beginning. Okay, we're gonna do a quick paint up, or at least touch up on the hook. The way this is painted it's pretty much like a black, solid black paint, and then what they did is they did a dry brushing of metal. We're gonna kind of keep the metal, but we're gonna bring in a lot of rust. So you think about if these pieces here are rolling against the metal all the time. These are always gonna look fairly shiny. But stuff around here is going to look like, you know, would be dirty and rusty. Parts around here would stay shiny. Anything that rubs would always stay kind of shiny, but other areas that don't rub that much will probably get rusty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same stuff here as with the Warp Block Bronze. And do just like kind of washes and stuff. Got some water, got a paintbrush. And I'm just going to kind of bring it under areas and just kind of bring out some like detail and just, you know, make it look a little bit dirtier in areas. If I have to, I might get some like brown paint too and do some stuff, but it's just a matter of just making it dirtier. And the same thing over here is if like there is a wire, you know, in here, this would always stay shiny. And the hook, this stuff would kind of, what I'm probably going to do is I'll probably get some metal though, and I'll probably bring up here in this area, make it a little bit more shinier, because if you're hooking stuff all the time, the metal's always grabbing so it's not getting rusty. But over here we get rusty and stuff like that. So it's just kind of thinking about where you want to put the rust. Okay, guys, so this project was pretty interesting. There's a lot of back and forth with the client where I was trying to, you know, I was trying to get the sculpt paint where he wanted it, but the problem is we came to the conclusion at the end that this sculpt doesn't play to that fire, oil, gasoline type of like fire. It really doesn't look. This is more of an old school look of comic book feel explosion. So you can't really force this type of like explosion of fireness, you know. So as you saw throughout near the end of the video, I was throwing a lot of blacks in there, and it was like, and I took pictures for him, and he's like, nah, it's not what I'm envisioning, blah blah blah. And then after a while he said, you know what, maybe we should just go back to the candy corn look, which was, you know, darker red at the bottom, a little bit yellowish top, and then the white tips. I said, you know what, I understand where you're going with this, but I said, you know, let's try and make it, let me try my thing at this point. Let me do what I would normally do for, like, I guess what I would like to have on my shelf. So he says, okay, go with it and let's see how it works out. So I started to lighten it all up then, and I said, you know what, let me add my pearls, because I always like to work in pearls and metallics and stuff, and I think this kind of calls for pearls because of the sculpt. Now, what I did is I lightened up all this area here, so I made it look fiery, but I kept the blackness up here, and I kept the blackness down there. So it looks like now the most of the fire is here, and the black is going away. So I think this plays better for the darker theme of the black and white Spider-Man. So with the pearls now, and I'm going to turn off the lights in a second, but as you turn the item, so like I'm looking at it in this direction, you guys are looking at it in that direction. So when I'm looking at it here, the pearls on here disappear, but this brightens, this brightens, this brightens, that brightens. Now when I turn it over this way, this brightens, that brightens, and this disappears. So it's kind of like the next best thing to having like a clear, translucent fire that you could kind of, you know, clear and red and make it look, you know, so you could kind of see some stuff. It's a little bit different. So I also said to him, now with this item, if you have it next to the classic Spider-Man, the classic Spider-Man's got that old feel explosion from the old comic books, where if you put the black and white Spider-Man on this statue, you get that more darker version of Spider-Man. So now it would be like, this is the brighter version, this is the darker version, so it kind of works out. And I also said, now, when this is in your case, whether you have a Besta case or you just have it on your shelf or you have a special case for the statue, if you have a light or you don't have a light, the lights are going to grab and play as you walk around the statue. So let me turn off the lights and you might see better. Okay, so the lights are off. Now I'm looking at the statue with the lights off on my end compared to the camera. It might be a little bit different. I'm getting some pearls, kind of pulling it out a little bit, but not much. So I kind of feel that it's there. Now I don't have much light in the studio now when the lights are off because I have a ton of lights in the studio. We have a light, you know, from the window over to the right, and then I got the computer screen behind me. So now, you know, if you have some lights pulling, you're going to get this look, but it's going to still feel dark. And then with the black and white Spider-Man being up on top, you're going to get that white symbol popping out more than the, you know, the satin black. So it's kind of like a darker statue, but it kind of plays into the whole theme. So let me turn these lights back on. So that's pretty much what we came up with, and I think this is pretty much where we're going to end. I like this explosion a lot more. We have that lot of fire, we have that dark smoke, and we don't have any more white. So now, since there's really no white on the base anymore, the eyes are going to be pulled up to the white symbol of Spider-Man now. We're not going to be thinking about the explosion as much as Spider-Man. So I think this is going to work out pretty good. And that's pretty much where we're ending with. Hopefully you guys liked the video. Hopefully it gives you guys some ideas that sometimes things start one way and they end up something completely different. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get it all set up and we're going to do the final video. So thanks for watching and we'll be back with some more.